Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day 461, Thursday, June the 14th, 2018. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, today's the big day. At 3 o'clock today, the IG report will be released, so I imagine the next couple days we'll be tearing into that. But today I'm going to do a video that's different than any other video that I've ever done, in the sense that today I'm going to target my video to certain individuals in the media. Specifically, individuals in the media like Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or maybe Mark Levin, Rush Limbaugh, Tucker Carlson, anyone like that. And specifically, what I'm talking about is anyone in the media who can interview, who is able to get an interview with Chairman Devin Nunes. And the reason why I'm directing my comments to you, people in the media, or possibly producers for one of these people, because I want you to focus on something I'm going to talk about here briefly. And it's that I want you to be able to have Devin Nunes on your show, one of you, so that you can finally answer his question. The big question that he's been trying to get to the bottom of for weeks, if not months. Seen him on Maria Bartiromo twice, seen him on some other shows, and lately what he talks most about is that he is still trying to find the origins or the beginning of the investigation into the Trump campaign. That's what he's trying to get. He's trying to find out when it began, and he's trying to find the cause, the probable cause, the reason that this was launched. Now, he tells us that he looked at the EC, the electronic communication, and saw nothing there that would provide evidence or reason to believe that is why they started the investigation into the Trump campaign. He said he's seen nothing from the Five Eyes intelligence community that would give him anything to show that there was a reason or something to explain why they started the investigation into the Trump campaign, and certainly no start date or anything like that. And of course, what he is saying is what we all know, is that the FBI is saying that they began their counterintelligence operation on July the 31st, 2016. But clearly Devin Nunes does not believe that that was the start date of the operation for obvious reasons, which is that, as we all know, there were many activities, many things going on at the FBI, the DOJ, and the intelligence community long before July the 31st, 2016. But for some reason, Devin Nunes continues to want to go after the DOJ and the FBI for documents. Now, he should go after the FBI and the DOJ for documents, for a lot of other reasons, to get a lot of other answers that we need to many other things that are happening around this overall conspiracy. But what I want to do today, for those of you who are in the mainstream media, maybe a producer for one of these people I mentioned, Limbaugh or Hannity or one of these people, I want you to let your talent know that the next time they get Devin Nunes on their show, to let them know that they have the answer to his question. The answer to his question about specifically the origins of the investigation into the Trump campaign. And so what I want to tell you is that Devin Nunes is looking in the wrong place. He continues to try to probe into the FBI and DOJ, and of course he's just getting stonewalled. But even if they turned over every document they have that he wants, he would not find the answer to the question that he's trying to solve. He would not find out the original date that the operation began, other than the FBI counter-intel operation, which began on July 31st, 2016. He will find nothing from the FBI that before that. He'll find nothing from the DOJ that shows any activity by the FBI before that. He's not going to find it because it didn't start with the FBI. So I'm going to lay out very simply. Now I could go through the long version, but I'm going to do the short version of this just so it's easy. That way, if you've got Devin Nunes there in studio or on the screen or what have you, and you're interviewing him, you can say, hey, Devin, we know the answer to your question. We know how that counterintelligence operation got started. We know where it all began and all the things that were going on before that. We have the answer to that. So I'm going to go ahead and take you through that now, very simply, in just a couple of steps. Here's what happened. In the summer of 2014, then CIA Director John Brennan claimed that Estonian intelligence had intercepted a phone call that Putin was pouring money into the Trump campaign. Brennan received intelligence from Estonia alleging that there had been a phone call that was intercepted, and that phone call pertained to Putin pouring lots of money into the Trump campaign. That was the first thing of note. Now, since then, we've learned that they've never been able to verify or back up this intelligence. And in fact, now it's believed that it was just bad intel or possibly even some kind of a hoax. It wasn't true. Then, in the fall of 2015, British GCHQ passed intel to the CIA about people around Trump having Russian ties. Now, it turns out that this was regarding Michael Flynn and this appearance he made at Cambridge, if you will. And supposedly, this intelligence was talking about the fact that Michael Flynn had been in conversation with a Russian woman. That was the hot intel tip that was given to GCHQ and passed along to the CIA. Now, this too has turned out to be bogus. The woman was not Russian. She's a British citizen of Russian descent. She's a regular person there at Cambridge. She is a historian and a researcher. She has completely debunked everything that was believed to be true, that there was something going on there between Michael Flynn and some woman, Russian spy. It's all been debunked. And who was the person who provided the tip to GCHQ that was passed on to the CIA in the fall of 2015 about Michael Flynn? Stefan Halper was the man who passed that tip to British GCHQ, which passed it to the CIA, and that was in the fall of 2015. That brings us to late March, early April of 2016. In late March, early April of 2016, former CIA Director John Brennan put together a secret 6-agency task force. It was run out of Langley, Virginia, CIA headquarters. These 6 agencies included the FBI, Department of the Treasury, Department of Justice, CIA, DNI, and the NSA. And we know that at least 2 of those members were James Clapper, the DNI, and Peter Strzok, number 2 man at FBI counterintelligence. They were part of John Brennan's secret 6-agency task force. Now keep in mind what was happening right there at the beginning of April of 2016. At that time, it had become very obvious to just about everyone that Trump was going to be the Republican nominee for president in 2016. He had about a 20-point lead. And other than being able to rig something with the delegates or something, there was no way he was going to be stopped. Trump was going to be the Republican nominee. And it's at that exact time that Mr. Brennan put together his secret 6-agency task force. Now we notice in this task force two interesting things. Number one of the agencies included was the Department of Treasury. Why the Department of Treasury? Well, my guess is that the Secret Service falls under the Department of the Treasury. The Secret Service. So I am suggesting that possibly the Secret Service had a person or two, maybe more, who were part of that 6-agency task force. We also notice that another department is not there that probably should be. That would be the State Department. They're not included. Why not? Well, again, let me take a guess. It's because if you look at what we're learning now, and the fact that Devin Nunes is investigating the State Department, and he is finding out that they had a very big role to play. And what role did they play? Well, the role they played was essentially the mailman, the delivery folks. It was Mr. Weiner of the State Department who went to London, got the dossier from Christopher Steele and passed it along to Victoria Nuland, who passed it along of the State Department, who passed it along to John Kerry, her boss, and then it supposedly made its way to the FBI from there. It was also Mr. Weiner that took the Hillary Clinton dossier that was put together by, we understand, Cody Shearer, passed along to Sidney Blumenthal. Then Blumenthal passed it to Weiner, and Weiner went and gave it to Christopher Steele, who then included it in his memos as some say another dossier or part of a dossier. But either way you want to look at it, that information went to the FBI. And as we can see, the dossier, the memos from the dossier and that stuff was all making its way to the FBI, mostly via State Department people. It's pretty obvious when you look at the situation and you look at the events that begin happening right after the 6-agency task force was put together, is when all of these things started happening. Some of these things would be the Papadopoulos meeting Misfit in London in March of 2016. April of 2016, you had the Clinton and the DNC hiring Fusion GPS. April 18th of 2016, Misfit introduces Papadopoulos to Timoviv. April 26th, 2016, Misfit tells Papadopoulos about Russians having dirt on Hillary. On May the 9th, Michael Caputo is approached by a spy. On May the 10th, Papadopoulos meets with Downer. On May the 15th of 2016, Nellie Orr is hired by Fusion GPS. In May, late May of 2016, Halper meets Carter Page, invites him to London. June the 9th, 2016 is the Trump Tower meeting. June the 15th of 2016, Fusion GPS hires Christopher Steele. June the 20th, 2016, Steele releases his first memo. June the 27th, 2016, the Tarmac meeting. July the 5th, 2016, the FISA court denies the first FISA warrant. July the 5th, Steele shares the dossier with the FBI in Rome. July the 11th, Halper meets Page in London. July the 11th, 2016, Michael Caputo has a second contact with the spy trying to give him information, stolen emails from an NSA contractor. July the 31st, the FBI opens up the counterintelligence operation. So as we can see, and as Chairman Nunes and others can see, many activities were happening long before July 31st, 2016. These activities all started right after John Brennan put together the 6-agency task force. Now, prior to that, there were other things going on. But we're focusing right now on the question that Devin Nunes wants to get answered, which is when did this investigation into the Trump campaign, this counterintel operation, actually begin, and what was the cause of it? And as I have just demonstrated to you, the cause of it was the fact that it became clear to the intelligence community and many others that Trump was going to become the Republican nominee. As soon as that happened, they put together the 6th Agency Task Force. And the 6th Agency Task Force, being run out of Langley, Virginia, which included Peter Strzok, began to take action and began to lay out all these activities that I just spoke to you about, which would eventually create the evidence that would be needed for the FBI, which would be laundered or moved through the State Department to get it into the hands of the FBI so that they could begin to launch the investigation legally. Legally. You see, the CIA cannot get surveillance warrants on American citizens on U.S. soil. That's the domain of the FBI. So, once Brennan saw this happening, he put together the task force, and of course he included the FBI and the DOJ, and specifically Peter Strzok. Why? Because the FBI and the DOJ could go secure the FISA warrants, and they could actually launch the operations. They could legally put informants into the campaign and do all these things as part of the investigation, which began July the 31st, 2016. But all the groundwork was laid for that prior to that. It was laid back in late March, early April, when they set up the 6th Agency Task Force. So the answer to your question, Mr. Nunes, is when did the operation begin to spy on or investigate the Trump campaign? It began in late March, early April of 2016 with the 6th Agency Task Force there in Langley, Virginia, headed up by John Brennan, which included Clapper and Strzok. That is the answer to your question, and that is why, Chairman Nunes, you can dig and dig and dig and request all you want for documents from the FBI to find the origins and what was the cause of the investigation of the Trump campaign and the date of that, when that all started. You will never find it, Mr. Nunes, looking at the FBI, because it didn't start there. It started in late March, early April with this 6th Agency Task Force. That's where it all began. Essentially, the CIA created, manufactured the evidence. They used the State Department to launder that, or to transfer that evidence into the FBI so that the FBI could begin their investigation legally. Assuming they followed the steps, assuming they had probable cause, assuming that they had followed all of their protocols and policies, which it appears they did not. But you will have a rough time, Mr. Nunes, trying to get information on Mr. Halper from the FBI when it's quite clear that Mr. Halper was busy long before July of 2016. So, Mr. Nunes, if you want to get to the bottom and you want to answer the question which I've just answered for you, you now have the answer. What you need now is the proof. You need to, yes, you still need those documents from the FBI and the DOJ for the other things you're working on, the surveillance and all that. But if you want to find the answer to your question, which I've just given you, you want to verify that and prove that is true, you need to look into the 6th Agency Task Force. And then look at all the, find out who the people were who were involved, the physical names. We know the agencies that Brennan used. What we don't know is all the names of all the individuals. Something tells me Bruce Orr may come up, but we know for a fact that Peter Strzok and Clapper were a part of the 6th Agency Task Force. That is where the investigation, or the wasn't an investigation at all, really. It was a counter-intel operation to frame Trump by framing people in his campaign. That was the operation. The 2016 FBI operation, Crossfire Hurricane, that was more of a cover. That was to facilitate being able to get FISA warrants and to use other law enforcement tools such as informants and things and such that they couldn't do through the six-agency task force. The six-agency task force was there to manufacture and lay traps and to provide agent provocateurs to create and to help blend in to the narrative, to feed the narrative. That's where it began. Late March, early April, and it began with the six-agency task force. It did not begin July 31st, 2016 with the FBI. That's not where it began. I just told you now where it began and who was behind it. So there you go, Chairman Nunes. That's where you need to look now. There's plenty of evidence for this, but I will direct your attention to an article written by a very connected journalist in the BBC, whose name is Paul Wood. He wrote an article on January the 12th of 2017. And that was the first time that we heard about this special task force until John Brennan went on CNN and told them that he set up the six-agency task force. You can watch the CNN clip of John Brennan telling the commentator how he responded to this report that there was money flowing into the Trump campaign. He got it from someone in the Baltic states. We know that's Estonia. And he said, so my response to that was I set up this six-agency task force. He admits it right on TV, so it can't be that big of a secret. Paul Wood of the BBC has obviously connections to the intelligence community in England. And he wrote his story on January 12, 2017. He lays it all out. He lays it all out. He says, essentially, to summarize briefly, it's a fairly long, not a long article, but there's a lot more that I'm going to tell you here. Just the basics. He basically said that Brennan was shown intelligence from the Baltic states, which turned out to be false, but nevertheless, based on that intelligence and the timing of Trump realizing in late March, early April that Trump was going to be the GOP nominee, that is when Brennan set up the six-agency task force. That's where it all began, Chairman Nunes. And since I'm on the topic of this article with Paul Wood, I would like to direct Trey Gowdy to read that article by Paul Wood from January 12, 2017. In that article, Paul Wood says that a lawyer outside the Department of Justice, but familiar with the case, told him that 3 of Mr. Trump's associates were the subject of the inquiry, but it was clear that the target was Trump, that it was about Trump, and this was clear. So there you go, Trey Gowdy. You say that this was not about Trump. It was about spying on Russians. It was never about Trump. Well, apparently, people on the inside who know, inside the DOJ, told Paul Wood something different. That it was all about Trump. And that these 3 individuals, who I think we know who they were, who were targeted for surveillance, were simply the stepping stones, the way to get to Trump. Read the article, Mr. Gowdy. So I am asking any of you in the news media, if you're a producer for Hannity, for Limbaugh, for Ingram, for any of these people, Maria Bartiromo, doesn't matter. Or if you know anyone, if you can get this information out. The next time that you have Devin Nunes on your show, and he tells you that he still hasn't found out the reason for the counterintelligence operation in the Trump campaign, if he doesn't know the origin, if he doesn't really know when it started, why it started, or how it started, please tell him. Invite him on your show and tell him that you now have the answer to the questions that he has been looking for. And once you tell him what I just told you, that should allow him to double check and verify what I've just said. And once he does that and finds that what I've just said is 100% accurate, then he can stop playing around with the DOJ and the FBI, thinking he's going to find the origins of the counterintelligence operation against the Trump campaign within the FBI and the CIA, or with the FBI and DOJ. It was all done at Langley, Virginia, CIA headquarters, with John Brennan and his secret 6-agency task force, which included Peter Strzok and Clapper and the agencies that I previously mentioned. That's where it began. That's where it started. That was what it was all about. And that's why you can't seem to crack that nut, Chairman Nunes. You're looking in the wrong place. Try looking at the 6-agency task force, Chairman Nunes, and I think you'll begin to find the answers, that being the origin or the cause of the intelligence operation against the Trump campaign, and the approximate date when it started. Of course, there were other activities going on even before that. We know that. We know that prior to that happening, back in the late fall, November of 2015, we know that private contractors were accessing the FBI NSA database. We know that that led Mike Rogers of the NSA to order an internal audit of all 702 queries. And after doing so, the report showed that 85% of those queries were unlawful. That led Mike Rogers to go to the FISA court judge, Collier, and bring it to her attention. She did an investigation and released what we know today is called as the 99-page FISA court document. My suggestion, if you are a producer of the Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or whatever show, my suggestion is you Google 99-page FISA court document. It's in PDF. You can read the whole thing. The names will be redacted, but the activities, the illegal activities, are not redacted. You can read them, and that's what they'll tell you. So, that is the long and short of it. That is the whole point of today's video, is to try my very best, because I keep seeing Nunes. He continues to go on TV, and he keeps saying he can't find the answer to these two questions. He's looked at the EC, looked at the Five Eyes intelligence. He just can't find it. He's got requests for more documents. He wants to find out about the spy, Mr. Halper. He wants to find out all these things. Mr. Nunes, or Chairman Nunes, Mr. Halper was active long before July 31st, 2016, as I just pointed out, which you can easily find yourself by looking at any timeline or looking at any of the notes that you have. You know that Mr. Halper was communicating. He was observing Mike Flynn back in 2015. He was active in 2014. He was trying to, buddying up with Carter Page and very early in May of 2016. So 3, 4, 5, 6 months, even longer than that, before 2016 of July, these activities were going on. So therefore, he couldn't have been working for the FBI at that point. He had to be working for the 6-agency task force. Now, he may have, once the FBI launched their investigation, he probably was turned over to the FBI, but he was probably working for British intelligence, actually, is who he was working for, and he was on loan to the CIA, was helping the CIA, and then when the FBI jumped into the mix with their Operation Crossfire Hurricane, Mr. Halper was already in place, it was already operating, and so he, at that time, probably began lending his services to the FBI as they continued their operation. This is basically where it's at. This is where you need to be focusing, Chairman Nunes. You're banging your head against the wall and getting nowhere. You will not find the origins of the counterintel operation in the FBI. You will not find documents. You'll find nothing. You need to be looking at the 6-agency task force set up by John Brennan of the CIA, operated out of Langley, Virginia, in late March, early April of 2016. There you go. So if you're a producer or someone for the Hannity Show or Ingram or whoever, please get this information to the on-air talent. Let them know that you now have the answer to the question that Devin Nunes has been asking that he can't seem to figure out. Let him know that you now have the answer, and give him the answer the next time you invite him on your show. Say, hey, Devin Nunes, it's great to have you back on. The last couple times I talked to you, you said that you still hadn't figured out or seen the evidence or intelligence or anything that would tell you how the investigation into the Trump campaign started or anything else, and you can't get the documents or anything else. Well, now you can go ahead and tell Devin Nunes exactly how that operation got started, who started it, and why, what led to it, and who's involved in it. Now you just need to dig into that. Trust me, Chairman Nunes, or producer for some show, dig into it. You will find the fruits that you're looking for. You will find exactly what you're looking for. Right there. So now you have it. So Devin Nunes should no longer be curious or ignorant about these two questions. Who started the Countel operation, why, and when? All these questions can be easily answered if you look into the 6-agency task force. Google it. It's not a secret. It's been out there for a couple of years. John Brennan told us about it on TV, and then Mr. Wood confirmed it. A couple other pieces of news before I go. Today, Trump was nominated by 2 lawmakers from Norway for the Nobel Peace Prize. A gigantic swamp monster, big-time anti-Trumper, a Trump hater, Mark Sanford of South Carolina, was defeated last night by a pro-Trump Republican, Kate Arrington. And Trump made a tweet just before the polls closed in support of Kate Arrington, telling everyone that Mark Sanford wasn't on the team. And he was defeated by about 4+ points. Wasn't that close. Winning, Sean Moody also won the GOP nomination in Maine. Danny Tarkanian won the 3rd District in Nevada. Adam Laxalt was a big winner in Nevada for the GOP governorship. Kevin Kramer won in North Carolina. Corey Stewart, he won in Virginia and will be taking on Tim Kaine for that Senate seat. Big night for Trump, for pro-Trump candidates. Did very well. I believe we're seeing a trend. There ain't no blue wave coming. Looks like a red wave to me. We also learned today that James A. Wolfe is pleading not guilty, and he has set up a legal defense fund. Finally, Tom Fitton has received documents now that he's just finished reviewing. This just came up an hour ago. These documents clearly show that Huma Abedin, while under oath, stated that the private email system that was set up for the rotten Reverend Clinton, Hillary Clinton, the private email system, the idea was Hillary Clinton. Huma, under oath, saying it was Hillary's idea to set up the private email server. Tom Fitton has got the documents. There you go. Thank you so much for tuning in. A little different today than what I normally do. Of course, all my subs are always welcome to watch all my videos, but I really wanted to target today those of you in the news media who may be in a position to have Devin Nunes on your show. Whether you're a producer, you work for Sean Hannity Show, or one of these other shows, please spread this message far and wide to all your friends in the media. Let them know that you have the answer to the questions that Devin Nunes has been asking for months. Let them know that you now have the answer. Bring him on your show and give him the answer. He can verify everything I said. And he'll no longer be curious and ignorant. He'll be on the right track at taking down the deep state coup. Thank you so much for tuning in. You guys have a good night, and I'll be back tomorrow. Bye.